All right. Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. My name is Andy Blanco, and I'm going to be your MC today for Stretch or Support Student Ability. And there will be an email sent out after this with a recording and handouts and some other good stuff. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox afterwards. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you've got some questions, just use the questions bar. It's probably going to look something like this on your screen, and let us know what questions you might have. Just feel free to, as they come into your head, just submit your questions, and we'll get to them as we can. And this hyperlink listed below is where all of our recorded webinars are. Again, don't have to write that down. It'll be in the email and in the recording, but if you feel like it, there it is. Got a couple other great webinars coming up on February 8th. We have got Dr. Kathy Welch and Dr. Steve Dunbar, the authors of the Iowa assessments. They're going to be talking a little bit about post-COVID data, what to expect, what to look for. We've recently done a study on that, and we've got those numbers available for you if you are interested in that sort of thing. And then February 22nd, we've got our good friend Monica Simon. She's going to bring some of her colleagues in and talk about some of her best practices. And that's going to be a great one too, so don't miss it. But without further ado, we're going to pass it over to our experts from Charleston County School District. We've got Elizabeth Uptegrove and Corrie Glover, and I'm going to stop sharing. Take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Andy. We really appreciate it. We're so happy to be here and sharing our work with you all. And we're very excited about the work that we've been doing with the COGAT and ability data and how we're using that with achievement data to leverage better achievement for kids and to better understand our students. So we're just really excited to be sharing with you. Again, my name is Elizabeth Uptegrove. I am an assistant academic director here in Charleston County School District. I oversee the Gifted and Talented program. And I am here with my coworker, Corrie Glover, who is our talent development lead teacher. And we have just been so excited this year. Our school board a year or so ago gave us another allocation to support this talent development and this growth. And so Corrie's position is very new to our district. And because we've had somebody who's been specifically hired to focus on developing talent and students maybe in underrepresented populations or who aren't typically showing out on gifted and talented assessments, we've been able to really dig into this data with some very intentional, purposeful work. So we're excited to share that with you today. Our system that we're going to be talking about that I built in a different district, it's called SOS, Stretch or Support. And so we hope you enjoy. We're going to have Corrie talk you through a little bit about Charleston County.
Absolutely. So we are very fortunate to call Charleston our home. You would be hard pressed to get around town without crossing a bridge, which can also be a little cumbersome if there's high winds or winter weather, but beautiful city. We're very lucky to live here. And just some fun facts about Charleston County School District. We are the second largest school district in South Carolina and serve approximately 49,000 students in a very, very narrow county that spans along the coastline of about 1,300 square miles. So you have to be a little intentional when you are traveling around from school to school, but a very unique district where we have urban, suburban, and rural schools. We have our Title I, more affluent schools. It's really the full gamut of experiences across our district.
Great, thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit, give you a little overview of this SOS system and what it is. And I wanted you to know that in our district, we have close to 50,000 students. About 1 in 5 are identified gifted, but we know that we have a lot more who aren't showing out necessarily in that range, and also that we know that we're wanting to get it helping kids develop their skills no matter where they are. So we're really looking to do that through a strengths-based mindset in our district. And so we don't want anybody to be pigeonholed because we're speaking to you from the perspective of a gifted and talented department, that's all that this is for. It's definitely can be utilized for your whole district or a school. But this system really is an intervention system with a talent development mindset. If you are using RTI, MTSS, whatever systems your schools are using to intervene with students and provide them differentiated learning where they are. This is a great addition to that, and it can really get at that enrichment piece and not just focusing on weaknesses for students. But so this particular system is designed to encourage teachers to use ability data to better understand and get at the why a child may be overachieving or underachieving. And throughout this presentation, we will refer to those areas as a stretch area or a support area. And really, in our terminology, for the purposes of our system, the stretch area is the student's relative area of strength, and the support area is a relative weakness for that student. And we talk a lot about how we all have relative areas of strength and weakness. And we think that this system is really special because those relative areas of strength and weakness are relative to the child themselves and not how we compare kids against each other. So we also love that this particular system that we've developed over the years provides a purposeful, engaging opportunities for lots of things that we know all kids love, but especially kids that we're looking in that with that talent development mindset. We know kids love choice and working on things they're good at. We know they love a chance to collaborate or that they need a chance to collaborate. This also builds communication skills, social emotional development, because we're going to be using games to help grow children's relative areas of strength and weakness. And so that through the gameplay, we get sort of unexpectedly, we get all of these other social emotional pieces through that while we're growing critical reasoning skills through this gameplay, through these games that we've chosen very carefully. We also love the fact that this system is really flexible. It's fun. It's really easy to implement on a lot of different levels. You could be a singular teacher buying into this, or you could be a curriculum director who's decided, hey, I'd love for a whole district to implement this, and it could go, you could really expand it any which way. So we really are looking to make sure that we're using that ability data to get all students support and access to more rigorous critical thinking that's going to help them with their core curriculum. So we'll go on. Thank you. And so this idea really took place or came about when I was working in Oakwood City Schools in Southwest Ohio, and I really enjoyed my time with that school district. We were about 2010 or so is when I started there, and we quickly became, I noticed that that particular district had a very high percentage of gifted identified students. I was working as a gifted intervention specialist at the time, and what I really noticed is I had all of these really talented students who crumbled at the idea of a mistake or a challenge. And so as I am being pushed to teach them extremely high levels of math at a very fast pace, we had a lot of tears, and we had a lot of what felt unhealthy for these students, because we were forced to be dealing with a lot of those emotional behaviors that they just weren't prepared to deal with, because they had not been prepared to look at learning and to look at life as this as a little bit of that productive struggle, and how to handle those situations. We were developing some character education programs around Carol Dweck's mindset philosophies, and then we were also reading Angela Duckworth's book on grit and the power of passion and perseverance, and all of those things were melding together as, yes, this is what our kids need. They need more grit. They need to understand that they can't always be the smartest person in the room. They can't always know everything, that actually not knowing is really better for them, because we're growing to a stronger place. But that was a very hard sell to kids that wanted to be perfectionists and wanted to be right all the time. It was also kind of a hard sell on teachers sometimes. And so then we came across Mary Kay Ricci's book of Mindsets in the Classroom, and that was really giving us exposure to how to really put Carol Dweck's work at play and really make it applicable in the educator world. In Mary Kay's book, she talks about games that are more logical, strategic type games. Things like that you might even have on your shelf at home for your kids or on a classroom shelf. Things like chocolate fix, rush hour, Quirkle, all of those types of games that we might relate more just as those challenging games that we have on a shelf for early finishers or for somebody who needs a little bit more challenge. So Mary Kay in her book is talking about those were really great ways to explore growth mindset in the classroom. Kids really wanted to play games and they didn't shut down because it was hard as often because it's fun and it was engaging and it was hands-on and they got to be with their friends while they were doing that. So that was a way to model growth mindset instead of just a hard math problem where everybody was tempted to shut down because maybe that didn't seem as much fun as playing a round of rush hour with moving the pieces and the manipulatives around. So we really got interested in those games. And I especially got interested because, of course, I had a lot of these games on my shelf as the gifted intervention specialist as go-to things for early finishers and enrichment time, but I wasn't using them very purposefully. I just kind of had them there and I would pull them in from time to time, but again, the intentionality was a little weak. And so started to think about, hey, the teachers in those professional developments were saying, hey, we'd really like to use these, but we feel like principals are not going to really approve us just playing games for the heck of it. So we started thinking through how could we use those games more purposefully. We could go on to the next slide. About that same time, things that were coming along in education for us, where we were being sort of what felt like bulldozed by Common Core and like really the upheaval of standards as we knew it. And all of a sudden, 21st century skills was being talked about all the time, and that communication and the creativity and the critical thinking and the collaboration, all those C's that we kept being told, hey, we need to do more of these things. Those things were kind of happening at the same time that this book study with the games had come about. And so all of those things were starting to come together in my mind a little bit as, I wonder if we can just better utilize these games to be more in line with these 21st century skills. Also coming along at that time, about that same time, I was about ready to move over to Charleston County, where a lot of different changes were happening in a very different district, a much more diverse district. Corrie, you want to tell them about that?
Absolutely. So that common theme of everything tending to happen at one time, we are kind of merging onto the freeway at the same time with this mission of talent development and really trying to provide the equity and access and everything that we know that we need to provide all students. And at the same time, our district was making some intentional shifts with curriculum and moving to Bridges, that more conceptualized math type of curriculum, EL, really trying to offer more of that equity and access through our ELA programming and curriculum. So it just, everything is kind of merging on at once. And so we want to make sure that, whatever we do, it's something that teachers can actually implement that's easy. And I think that that's what we're most excited about, is that this is a program that is not only easy to implement, but it also gives you a lot of feedback about your students that you might have unintentionally ignored in the general curriculum. So it's very exciting. We're super excited to see how it continues to unfold and to hear how it might unfold in your classroom or district. One quote that I think that really everything that we're doing is really centered around, and you'll hear us say it a lot, and it's we kind of get to go back and forth over who gets to say the quote, but talent is distributed equally and opportunity is not. And again, the thing that we are just really rooted on here is that this program is allowing us to give a lot of students an opportunity to showcase what they are good at that maybe they wouldn't have the ability to showcase if they didn't have those opportunities through something as simple as games. And what we're hearing from teachers is that they're excited to be able to see that these students are able to do something that they're good at and be excited to do it, and it's changing their trajectory on how they're seeing themselves in the classroom. And so that ownership and really bringing that home is huge. Another thing that we're really focused on, if you see down with the talk about tiers, really of course we know in our MTSS meetings there's a lot of talk about tier 2 and tier 3 on that left-hand side, and so we also want to make sure that we're being very intentional with those tier 1 students, and also looking on the right-hand side. The idea that because they are gifted or because they're really strong in this area, then they'll be fine. They'll be fine. But how can we continue to grow those areas of strength? And we don't want to ignore those little moments that we can have with our students as well. So we are, just really being able to bring it all back to that equity and access, and growing that talent is huge.
Yeah. And so we really think that taking this ability and achievement data together is like the key to everything. And Corrie, I don't mean to overstep. Why don't you go ahead and walk us through what we're doing with teachers when we really mean what we're doing with ability versus achievement.
Right. So, oftentimes you're having those, there's so much emphasis on achievement in our school system, and it kind of leads us to this deficit mindset of where are they struggling, and where do I need to fill in the holes in order to help students catch up? And so that's where we tend to get focused on the left side of that bell curve. It's just that the natural progression there. So what we're really focusing on is trying to do a more intentional job of triangulating with that data, using the ability data to see where are our students' ability levels at, and then being able to see if they're actually reaching that potential, or if we have some underachievers or overachievers, and what that all looks like, and really looking for our outlier students and how we can better help give them the interventions and enrichment that they would need for their ability level. So it's definitely changing the conversation. And oftentimes, teachers they don't see the student with that strength. And so being able to look at that ability data and see that every student does have a relative strength, and to be able to communicate that to parents as well is huge, because you're going to have the chance with that parent who might not have heard anything positive about their student in a while, unfortunately. And so we're able to really hone in on every student's strength and grow that.
Right. Yeah, we are really noticing that as we go to do, for us in our district, the data comes back in, a lot of our data comes back in for our elementary students about this time of year, mid-year. And so we are now pushing out into our schools to do PDs and PLCs about how to understand that data better. And the more we do it, the more we realize that students or that teachers really are uninformed about how to use and analyze ability versus achievement data. And so we hear things all the time, and you probably hear them too out in the teacher's lounge, or when you're going out to work with other teachers, or perhaps when you're just chatting with colleagues, maybe we're not sure why, Andy's been even referred to take this test. He doesn't stand a chance. We get that a lot when we roll out the COGAT as our ability test. A lot of comments, a lot of negativity like that. Well, we're trying to reframe in Charleston County, but even on a bigger scope in South Carolina, where this test is mandated at second grade, we really want to change that persona of it not just being labeled as the gifted test. This ability test is powerful. It gives us the why a child may or may not be meeting their expectations. We think that every teacher should be embracing that eagerly when that data comes back in, and not just using it as a marker for, is he going to get to go to a different class, or is he going to get we used to call it the golden ticket for gifted, where parents get to be so excited. We're really trying to get away from that. If you'll give us one more click, and on that one, it's going to turn us around here. Yeah, so it's not just the gifted test. We're really trying to get past that. Our other quote that we hear a lot is, oh my gosh, why this test? Another test, these kids don't need another test. Well, we give about 15,000 achievement tests, if you don't mind my hyperbole there. But in our district, we only give the ability test once. We're working on giving it a second time to other grade levels, but we really think, because it's going to help us give that whole picture of the child, that this test is more important than some of those achievement tests. I would really argue to pull back on one of the many achievement tests, and make sure you understand and you're investing in the development for your teachers to better understand this data so they can use it more effectively. Because just depending depending on achievement is not getting us anywhere. So this other quote that says, what do I do with these school reports? Just put them in the Cume file? That we get that a lot. I can't imagine being a teacher and like somebody handing me test data and just saying, I don't know what to do with that. Like anytime somebody is going to give me data, I want to, like really get into it and figure out what this is going to tell me about that child. So we want to get past that mindset. And so we want to make sure that that teachers are saying when they receive that data, wow, this is powerful data. I should be using it to inform my instruction. And they should have ways to do that. And we're going to get to our system here to help you do that for teachers in just a moment. Our parents are supposed to be able to decipher all of these numbers. I'm fielding phone calls as we speak about not being able to decipher. Teachers don't even know what they mean. So what we're doing right now is making sure that everybody can understand the data. We're making sure that we need to make our teachers experts of the data so they can pass that along to parents. They need to be able to confidently look at that school report and explain it. And then we love it when teachers say, I'm facetious, when teachers say things like, oh, I love the CogEd test. I get to catch up on grading papers for 3 days. Well, I'll tell you something that we're finding out that's really disheartening and actually not funny at all, that you really should be monitoring your students and providing that environment just like you would for any state testing where the stakes are high for you. What we have found is when we give ability testing just as the gifted test, the teachers, the administrators, the instructional coaches, stakes are very low for them. The only person that it's high for is that child and their parent, and that parent is not in the building when that test is happening. So, maybe we're not quite as mindful as we should be of the procedures and protocols of giving that test. So as we're going through our data with teachers, we're noticing kids didn't complete the test. And in a county where we are trying desperately to make sure that all students have access and an equitable chance to be given access to gifted curriculum, what a shame if they are not getting complete scores that will get them in that door. I don't love the fact that that our state policies revolve around those numbers, but they do. And if they do, we have to be mindful about how we're administering that assessment, and we have to care. So that is some of the things that we were able to overturn a little bit as we talk to teachers as we go out to do our PLCs and professional development. So that professional development and the need for that, and the need for critical thinking, and the need for collaboration, and the idea of games are awesome is really what has come together to make planning and implementing this SOS stretcher support system so exciting. So really, when you're implementing this system that we do in Charleston County, you can break it up basically into 3 phases. So we have that data piece and sort of that planning phase where we're going to help our teachers better analyze and understand their students, who they are at their core, and what their relative strengths and weaknesses are. And then we have phase 2 where we're getting together all of our materials. Like we want to pull these games together that are going to be really the heart of that intervention that we're going to provide for these students. It's going to be what they love. It's going to be what teachers love going to help maybe fill a downtime or something like that, or a more purposeful scheduled intervention time. But we're going to help you plan how you pull all of those materials together. And then the final phase, which is the best of all, is when we push out and kids actually get to engage in the system. It's like go time, and we launch that play time in the classroom. So we're going to break those 3 phases down, and we'll start with phase 1.
So in phase 1, we're basically laying all of the groundwork for what's going to happen in phases 2 and 3. Obviously, we're having intentional conversations with the teachers about that data. What is aptitude data? How do we use it? What is the purpose? And really getting that buy-in. And oftentimes, I think I mentioned it already, but teachers, every single time we have had this going through phase 1, teachers are saying, wow, I never saw my student in that way. And so it's fascinating to see that change. So we're laying that groundwork, really supporting teachers to understand what is their area of strength, what is their area of support. And so they are, and I think if we could click on one of those, does that show the
Okay.
stretch or support?
Let's go back to the other one, Anna. I'm sorry. Yeah, the second link, stretch and support. Perfect.
And so it's color coded. We'll talk about the color coding in just a moment, but really they're looking at a profile that in our state, we have a document where we have all of the students' data for aptitude, for achievement, and any other dimensions that could be used for identification. And we have this for all students in their class. And so they're able to go through and really figure out, based on what all data we have in front of us, where is their area of stretch and where would be their area of support. And then we list out students in these categories. The important thing is that we're going to make sure and communicate this to students. We want students to be the owners of this information, to really want to challenge themselves when it's their stretch time, and then also know that they're going to go and be supported when they're going to their support groups. I think that one of the important things about it is, if we think about some social emotional learning, we have students who are all going to stretch time feeling confident, and they're ready to go and be excited to, learn something and stretch where they are. And then when we have them going to a support group, they're all going knowing that that's not their relative area of strength. And so they're all going in with that same mindset. So no one is feeling, that they're the only one who's going to be struggling, because they know that that's a support day. So that was very important for us to make sure that students are really taking ownership of this and knowing which group they're going to. I think we could go back to the slideshow. Thank you. So we're laying that groundwork. We're, like we talked about, figuring out students who maybe their aptitude is showing that they are significantly underachieving on those achievement tests. Maybe they're overachieving, getting at the why, really sounding off with any red flags if we're seeing some differences in data that we need to investigate a little bit further going forward. But this is where that groundwork is being laid, and teachers are making sure that they know to pull students and let students be aware of all of their data and where they are with that.
Yeah, I just want to add that the COGAT does provide an ability profile that is a beautiful piece to be using for that part of the discussion. Thanks, Anna. We don't need to click there. It's all good. But I just want to say that in our state, we also have that gifted profile that Corrie was describing. But if you are just like introducing the Iowa COGAT for the first time to your students, as we do in second grade, we get that beautiful combined report that shows the Iowa, the achievement, and the ability data all in one document. And they have some really great narrative that happens on that profile. And it's really a great time to walk teachers through exactly what that's saying and meaning. Sometimes just the amount of words on the page and the different categories of scores really is intimidating, both to teachers and parents, but you walk people through it just step by step, and all of a sudden they're open to new information. One thing that I do want to talk about too, where we have that Google form prep, you don't have to click on it, but what I sometimes do, or what we've learned is kind of fun in these presentations when we're going to do the PD prior to the system beginning, is we ask teachers sometimes to tell us their top 3 students and why, and we'll ask them that in a Google form ahead of time. Tell us, just simple, not anything. They could even do it in the first, as a welcome to the PD session that day. And what we end up getting is it's interesting to see why people choose these students as their top and why, and then we ask them to tell us one really challenging student and why. And typically, if we don't have time to go through everyone's data that day, at least we then have 4 people now to focus on, and we can really get in at the nitty-gritty of why they thought they were such a great student and we can ask them, we can help them profile that student through their ability and achievement data and say, is this consistent with what you're thinking? What I'm seeing from this particular report might mean that this student could be a multilingual learner because he's scoring really high in nonverbal, but really, really discrepant or lower in verbal. But maybe that math score or that quantitative score is up there as well. So I might start wondering about why a child is playing out a way that we're seeing on the data. And maybe it might be time to have those intervention conversations from your learning specialists and whoever might be working with your exceptional children in your school. But that's a really nice way to kind of hone it down on who you might be talking about. But many times we are able to go through a teacher's entire list of test data, highlighting and then putting kids onto the colored document that you saw, and it's sort of like a make and take. They walk away from that hour-long PD with lists already made of students all in their relative area of strength and students all in their relative area of weakness. And now we are calling those our stretch and support groups. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. And this was just talking about how we've established a little bit of color coding that we have found be very helpful as we're managing all of the materials in the system. So as we are talking through verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal data, we tend to put this color coding on it, pink, yellow, blue. It ended up being what I could always find paper and stickers and highlighters in very easily. So we have just made that part of our system. And so we find that this is sometimes the first time teachers really deeply understand what's going on in each section of the COGAT, that our verbal reasoning scores, how a child is reasoning with words, and how quantitative, how a child is reasoning with numbers, and nonverbal, how a child is might be reasoning with pictures, patterns, space, and figural shapes. So that's a really big introductory breakdown for some teachers, and that's important. So we can go on to the next slide. And so that color coding is important as we get into prepping all of our games to bring together. And this is one of our things that we're just so proud of and very excited about. So as we about 10 years ago or so, when I first started putting this system together back when I was in Ohio, I remember I started vetting all of these games, spent hours and hours and hours perusing different games. Think Fun became a company that I really enjoyed. They put together a lot of games that fell into these categories. And so I was looking to take all of those more strategic, high reasoning games and see if I could put them into categories of verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. And really and truthfully, everything really could fall into one of those three categories. And so I started making this list of all of these verbal games. The one that I love to share, Apples to Apples, is pretty familiar to everybody. It's different than just your standard reading comprehension type content skill. You know, when we're playing Apples to Apples, we're making word comparisons. And you can tell when you're playing that type of game and then you have to defend your choices, all of a sudden you're going up that level of blooms and getting into a higher level of reasoning, all because of the way the game is structured. And games in general, just because they're strategic in nature typically, and we're looking to either one up someone or one up our own score, it's forcing us to be more strategic in our choices. And anytime we force choice, we're increasing that critical thinking. So in all of these categories, when we're doing these activities in a game-like setting, we're already increasing that critical thinking. Quantitative games, we definitely have a few favorites in there. One of my favorites that I like to promote is Prime Climb. A lot of you might be, if you're familiar with Prime Climb, might have seen it used in a math classroom. I highly encourage that game. But we witnessed that game just the other day and heard some amazing conversations happening. We can tell there's so many things, the mental math that's happening, the strategic thinking that's happening as children play those games, and then how they're communicating to each other about their choices is just sometimes mind-blowing. So that is something that we don't feel like we're able to get out of a standard math lesson, and the game allows that to occur. We also have games in the nonverbal category, and this tends to be a lot of people's favorite. And what I love about nonverbal is just in regular achievement tests, we're never going to see that skill. And so nonverbal, it's talking to us about our ability to reason with pictures and patterns. So if you've ever utilized the game set, where we're categorizing things based on their characteristics, or Quirkle, when you're trying to decide how to set up your patterns to create and make the game go on, or Think Fun has some beautiful, all the ones we mentioned earlier, like Chocolate Fix and Rush Hour. All of those are nonverbal games. They have some amazing ones that they've come out with lately, like Laser Maze and Marble Runs, where the children might be building a marble run to get to a certain spot in a certain amount of moves or adjustments to their structure. So some of these things can be played one-on-one and aren't necessarily collaborative games, but we always encourage folks to gather around and work in pairs at least to interact with the games. We have built a master game list that keeps expanding as we speak. And Anna, if you don't mind clicking on that master game list, we'll certainly share this out afterwards, but this tends to be what everybody gets really excited about, and it's the games sort of characterized into those color-coded verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal sections on this. And again, we're happy to share this out. There's also, and it's on our website too, at our school district website. On that, you can see links to purchasing the games through Amazon and things like that, as well as pricings. So those things might be of interest to you. But that overall game list, I want to just say that we originally, again, in the district where I came from, we were working to buy for grades 1 through 6. So I have the games on this particular list tiered out by grade level, but you're not married to that. You can fluctuate up and down. All of these games, a lot of these games are like good from age 8 to 99. So they can be really flexibly used. We just didn't want kids to be playing the exact same games all the time. We wanted them to be able to go through the years and get different games as they got older. So we put some ones that were more adaptable for younger students at higher on that list. But that is, if we can go back to the slides, I will show you also that we have a bin system that we use. You can see in the picture here. However you decided to do it, whether it's, you could have that pink, yellow, blue stack for one classroom, you could have it for a couple of teachers that shared, or you could have it for a grade level that shared. We've even seen people put them on those little tri-tiered carts and move it around. But this is how we first started. In this particular picture, we had a whole hallway filled with all of these bins from a grant that we received. And so we had I think maybe 2 sets of these for each grade level in that district. So you can really be flexible with how you organize that, but that's what we would do. We would order the games and then put them into bins and then deliver them to teachers like that. I would also say that if you're a teacher just in your own classroom, you might already have a lot, games or a shelf of games. You could go ahead and just put stickers and divide them out into verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal categories, what you already have. We also want you to not be intimidated by price or cost or anything like that, because we have found in very different districts, lots of ways to get access to money to support this particular system. So when this first started, it was because I was offered a grant of about, I think $12,000 or $14,000 to do this across a small district. And so that was very exciting. So I just wrote a grant and was able to do that. I then thought that the folks that I was working with at the time said that we should consider partnering with our local toy store. And unbeknownst to me, not only were they willing to help me, they were willing to do all of the ordering for me and deliver that to us, so I didn't have to manage all of that. So I took my grant money and at the end cut them one check and didn't have to manage all of that ordering. If you are at a point where you can be ambitious like that and you have access to that grant money, this is an exciting thing to do with that, because there's so much data around using for needing the increase in critical thinking. So Also, just recently here in Charleston, something that is going to help us roll out our system a little bigger, even within our own district, is the fact that a Bosch is local to us here, and they do a teacher grant rollout every year, and we were awarded their district-wide grant of $25,000. So we will be now, we have about 50 elementary schools across our district that we will be buying a set of these for every elementary school. We have individual teachers that have done individual teacher grants, either through Donors Choose or companies like Bosch, where they've gotten grants to buy just for their classroom or just for their grade level, all of those types of things. One of the most exciting things that we have going on right now is our local toy store. I'm taking a nod from in my previous district. We had a beautiful local toy store on Main Street in our beautiful little town of Oakwood. And we worked with Blue Turtle Toys, it was there in Oakwood. Here in Charleston, we have WonderWorks, and it's got several different locations in our town. And we're going to be partnering with WonderWorks. They are going to do our purchasing and ordering, and we don't have to mess with any Amazon shipments or any receipts or anything like that. It's just, that's really great. And they're going to just deliver it all to us. We'll get them sorted out into the bins and take them to the schools. But not only are they going to do that, they're going to start partnering with us on teaching parents about the power of games and the power of better critical thinking at home. So they're going to be offering game nights in their store, and they're going to come into our district to do PD and help teachers understand the games. Big thing to understand here is that as you're ordering all these, you do not have to be the master of all the games. You don't have to learn how to play every single one of them. It doesn't matter. The children will learn it. It will be okay, and it's really great to learn together. So you have to have that open mindset. So part of what also is happening in this game prep phase is you want to be sure that you're planning how and when you're going to do this. So is it going to be an intervention schedule? Like, do you have an intervention schedule? In our previous district and in a lot of our schools here, we have win time, W-I-N, what I need is what that stands for. And so when the 20 minutes or so a day when kids would go to win time, the games might be used during that time. You might have another intervention system. You might have, hey, I just need something to do when my kids come in first thing in the morning to get them sort of like, to get their brains going. Or I might need something to help them get re-energized at the end of the day. Or I might need to do something as we're packing up, you know, at the end of the day, and I need a little bit more filler time. You might have times like that, but you just want to get that planned and get that marked out for your teachers. And we can go on to the next slide. Yeah, and just excited about the flexibility that you have with this. If you're getting overwhelmed, please don't, because there's tons of flexibility in how you choose to tackle this. It's just games. It's just understanding your data and putting the two together. Corrie, you want to talk us through all the different ways we've seen this play out?
Absolutely, yes, lots of different ways. Like you were mentioning morning work, you know, not having to do the morning work worksheet game and being able to let students come in and be excited about coming in and getting to play a game in their strength area. Like, what a wonderful way to get students to buy in and want to come in the morning. We have seen grade level wide implementations where they're doing it, like you said, during their acceleration time or win time. We're hoping to partner with our after school program here locally so that we could, you know, students who are going to our afternoon kaleidoscope would be able to continue with some strength and support areas. Also rolling into our summer program. So just lots of different opportunities. And also I think that, you know, if we're thinking about this as a coordinate plane here, like you know, you could look at it as far as how much budget you may have. You may have a larger budget if you're getting a grant versus you're repurposing games you already have in your classroom. And then how much time are you able to invest in it? So you can really make it what you need to make it in order to fit your specific needs, whether that's in a specific classroom, grade level wise in an entire school, or as we're hoping to continue rolling out to the whole district. So it's very exciting to see that it's a program that can be so versatile for everyone's needs. In Phase 3, we most recently got to see this roll out in a school, Stono Park Elementary here locally in Charleston. And this is, of course, the best phase, right? You get to go and play games with students and just see them ignite with their learning. If you can imagine taking a classroom of 20 to 25 third graders and just sitting a bunch of games out and saying, go pick one that's yellow or go pick one that's, going along with your strength area, go. That might give you a little bit of heart palpitations to think about how is that actually going to play out in the classroom. So I think that one of the best action steps that our friends at Stono Park took was coordinating some time where we had volunteers come into the classrooms for that first day. These are not volunteers who knew the games. They're not experts on the games. They were just able to come in and support the students in their area of strength and sit there with them and learn how to play the game together. And it gave students that support that they needed, but also the confidence to be able to work together to figure out, they're not always going to agree, but how can we learn how to play the game? It was really interesting and fun to see. And now, as they have had several weeks with the games, there's less and less of a need for those volunteers. And so they've been able to roll back on that. But it was very exciting. They called it a launch day. And so it was just a great district-wide initiative where lots of volunteers were able to come and see this really firsthand, what students can do in their areas of strength. So that was fascinating. I think we have a video of phase 3. If it played, or did we determine it did not?
I think I've got the settings figured out for the audio here. So
Hey,
I'm going to count on you two to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm going to try and share this video here. So please bear with
My name's Alicia Tackett. I'm the literacy coach here at Stono Park, and we recently launched the SOS days, which are stretcher support days. We did this after analyzing student data in a meeting with members of the gifted and talented department, and teachers sorted their students based off their relative strength. So we were able to, and an area of support. But for many of us, this was an opportunity for our teachers to look at their students under a different lens, a strength-based lens.
I would recommend it to all schools because it's better than regular learning about it, and it helps you more with what strategies to use.
I'm not a type of guy who only worries about himself. I worry to help other people, and maybe if they get the games, then they might get a complete education too.
That the students are definitely engaged, especially in the time that we live right now. The students love to be more hands-on, and it kind of gives them a break. At least they think they have a break away from learning, but they really are learning a lot. And to be able to look at their strengths and do something that they're well at is another thing. I myself enjoyed taking that time to play the games with them also, and sometimes they're having to teach me.
First, some of these games have words I don't know, so it's helping me learn more words. It's improving my vocabulary.
It's challenging for my brain, and that makes it fun for me. Awesome. Because I like when my brain gets challenged.
The one that we play most often is reviewing different types of synonyms, antonyms, two-word homophones, and stuff like that. And that helps me understand all the different meanings of words and how to use them.
I love the program because the games that were chosen are more than just computation. It's a lot of strategy and planning, which sometimes we don't get that in our everyday life. And so when they realize they're being taught that in a game, they get very excited about it.
One that was called roller coaster, where you have a bunch of these track pieces and you have to try to make a big roller coaster to make sure that they all fit together.
Playing Franklin, I learned strategies to multiply.
My strength in math is mainly my brain, and I say that because I'm very good with math.
Students are really engaged. They're really enjoying it. They look forward to Friday, and I look forward to, playing the games with them. So.
The adults enjoy them too because every time they are smiling and laughing, and they actually enjoy having time with the kids, and it's very, very fun.
But the kids are very excited about coming to those Friday afternoon game times. They look forward to it. And I don't know what some of the other teachers ran into, but mine wanted to play that same game again. So I think the downfall is maybe not having enough opportunity for them to play those games with guidance still before we let them loose in the classroom. But they are hungry for more, and if we could just create some more opportunity for that to happen, that would be the only downfall of it. So it's a great program, and whoever thought of it, good job.
One thing that always almost makes me tear up when I see this video is, even though I despise pictures of myself, there's a picture of me playing a games with these kids here, and I did not know these kids at all. I had just come in that particular day, and there I am. And the child to my left was one who had just arrived in that classroom not 20 minutes before. And she didn't know anybody, and I could tell she was having a miserable day. It was her first day, she was nervous, and the game changed everything for her. Within the next 20 minutes, she had friends, she was having fun, she was laughing, she felt confident. I knew that she would go home that day with something good about her experience that day. The other thing that is very, very special is the child who was sitting to my right. He did not speak English, and unfortunately, as I looked to the teacher, she had had her kids grouped prior to us settling out, but that child was not in a group, and she looked at me and said, and this is not necessarily a great reflection, but at that particular time, she was unsure of where to put those students because one was new and one didn't speak English. And I said, well, it's perfect because I'm going to be working with a nonverbal game, so I will take my friend here and we'll be just fine. He was brilliant. He absolutely impressed the students with what he could do. He blew our minds. He and I could communicate through the nonverbal pieces. He understood what I was trying to get him to do. And I knew very quickly that I had a very, very bright child on my hands, and I knew more about him in 5 to 10 minutes that the teacher had, and she had been working with him for a couple of days now. So that was very, very exciting and telling of that particular situation. But we love that partnership, and as they continue to grow that work at that school, they're definitely our beacon on a hill for using that, and we can't wait to follow the impact of what it's doing to their scores. I think we're about at the end of the road, both of our time, and maybe need some questions to answer.
We've got, well, first of all, the number one question is, can we please have that game list?
Yes.
We've seen that several times, and the answer is yes, as you are now aware, that we'll make sure that that list is available to you in the follow-up email. We got some very excited comments here. Kind of variations, we got a couple variations on the question of students who don't have a relative strength or weakness, and how to address that. We touched on it a little bit, but if you could just maybe.
Yep, absolutely. So we definitely see that question and concern a lot, and we want people to relax about that question. That if it's not showing in their ability area, like between verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal, we want you to use your achievement data to triangulate. We want you to use your day-to-day formative assessments to help inform that. If you know what a child is enjoying and where they are lighting up, you can use that in those moments where the ability test scores or the COGAT scores are not where it's not jumping right out at you. So yeah, we get that a lot, and and that's what we love, that planning phase with the teachers ahead of time. We walk all through that data, and we do the ones that jump out at us first, and then we go back to the ones that have more of those balanced scores without that contrast. And we sort of nitpick and dig in a little deeper on other data for them.
Fantastic. And then, maybe I can help with this, but a couple variations on ability profiles. Certainly the bandwidth to really dig in and get to the nitty gritty of those and to read those detailed descriptions is certainly very time consuming. And do you have any suggestions? I certainly have a few, but how to kind of streamline that process and make it, teacher friendly, so it's kind of
Absolutely.
a one and done kind of.
You need to develop a core team of experts in your district, and it depends on if you're working at a school level or a district level. We're working at a district level, so we are going with a train the trainer mindset. And so we are developing experts both on our core team. We're lucky that we have a team within our department that is able to sort of spread out to our district. But from there, we are going and connecting with instructional coaches at all schools to make sure that there is a representative. The person that is administering the COGAT in that school should be the expert of those score reports. There should be a touch point in every school that can be the expert of how to interpret those results. And so you have to getting their buy-in, whether you're having one training for all of those people or you're going out like we're trying to do to all of the different schools that are interested in rolling this out in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of how we're tackling that right now.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Fantastic. And we also have, just kind of a plug, here we do have a differentiated instruction report available for both online testers and for online scorers that allows you to see all of the profiles grouped by student, and there's all the text, or at least variations on the text that you might find on cogat.com. But
absolutely, we utilize that for sure. We also utilize the strategies, the instructional strategies that come with that. That is another nice piece to put into your conversations with teachers, because maybe they might not run with the game situation, but understanding the data and what they can do just in their day-to-day instruction is really super important. So we don't want to miss that opportunity to share those. So we have another whole group of ideas, but we combine it with what COGAT already has on the website as well. And again, just being willing to dig into the resources that you guys provide. Sometimes we're a little either overwhelmed or lack of time for everybody, right? But once you dig into them, you'll be sorry that you didn't sooner.
Well, wow. Thanks for that. That's certainly like to hear that. And we are about out of time here, so I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. We'd certainly like to thank Elizabeth and Corrie for your expertise, and certainly for that list of games. I know that is going to be a huge hit, but for everything you do, that's wonderful. We'll include that video. Everybody that can hear me needs to see that video. It's just it'll get you. It's just wonderful. And thank you both for everything that you do. And for everybody here, be sure to check your email for the follow-up. And thank you.
Thank you.
Much.